Hi, my name is Morgan from FinePoints.biz, and today I'm going to talk all about how, as a bookkeeper, how I interact with accountants. Definitely subscribe for a bookkeeping video every week. A thumbs up helps me out a ton, and you may want to check out my free checklist and masterclass. All right, the first section I called introductions. So how does a client even get an accountant, and how do I start working with them? So most of the time, I'd say like 90% of the time, every client I've had has an accountant. Because even if they're a really new business, they need to file taxes. And so usually that is on their, in their awareness, on their agenda of things they have to have, probably even before they realize they might need a bookkeeper to help them out with their books. So most often during the onboarding process, at some point, I'm going to be email introduced to my client's accountant. So usually I will ask for an email, a contact information for the accountant, and I'll be like, is it okay if I just email him and introduce myself? And so then I'll just do that. I'm like, I'm Morgan in bookkeeping for this client, the name of the person, and then if there's anything that you need from me specifically, either quarterly or annually, let me know. If there are any specifics on how you want me to set up the chart of accounts or, do certain things to make your life easier, let me know. And it might be possible that the client does not have an accountant. Maybe they're just using TurboTax or something and doing their taxes themselves. In my experience, that's probably a pretty small business because most people do get help with taxes. If they're ready to hire a bookkeeper, usually they want help with their taxes, in addition. So in rare cases, your client might not have an accountant, or they might want an accountant but not have one. And so in that case, I just have met multiple accountants, and usually I can make a recommendation for them. The exception might be if it's like an out-of-state client and they want someone within their state who knows the tax laws in their state. But generally, they're able to find someone without too much trouble. The reason that someone would want both a bookkeeper and an accountant is because as a bookkeeper, I'm able to do a lot of the tasks for a cheaper, hourly rate than the accountant would be charging. So it's cost effective for them to hire a bookkeeper to do some of that categorization and just the day-to-day bookkeeping tasks. If you're not really sure exactly what that entails, I do have a video called What Does a Bookkeeper Do? That should help you out. It looks like that. All right, and then my next two sections are kind of what I do quarterly with an accountant and then what I do at year end. So starting off with quarterly, I don't check in necessarily with the accountant every single quarter, but I will check in periodically and ask again if they need stuff set up a certain way just to make sure I'm categorizing it, throughout the year as the accountant prefers. And I do not advise my clients on taxes, so if there's any tax questions that come up throughout the year, we're able to shoot the accountant an email about those. And I really do think the accountant kind of almost as my boss. So as a bookkeeper, I don't have as much schooling, or I don't have to do continuing education. I don't have probably as much experience as them, and they just have a certain expertise. And they're the ones filing taxes. So in addition to setting up the books as my client wants, I have to make sure that they are looking just like the accountant wants as well. And another reason that I might contact an accountant in the middle of the year, throughout the year, is if the client's income is notably going up or down. Then we might need to adjust the quarterly tax payments. So I do have another video all about quarterly tax payments. The thumbnail looks like that, and you can check out that for more information. But basically, in most cases, if the client did business the previous year, the accountant is going to prepare a quarterly estimate so that instead of having a giant tax payment at the end of the year, they could pay that in quarter chunks. But that, again, is based on the previous year's income. So if you're making $100,000 more than you made last year or something, if your client is, then they're probably going to want to adjust their taxes accordingly so that, it's not a big tax burden at the end of the year. Same with going the other direction. If you are losing a lot of money, then you won't have to pay as many taxes and you can have that cash to help, with your business expenses. All right, and then number 3 is year end. So this is the time that I probably talk with the accountants the most consistently and the most volume. I did just do a video all about year-end bookkeep with me, so it looks like that. And in that video, I went over all of the questions that my true life accountant for one of my clients asked me last tax season. And I think it was 10 or 12 questions, and then I had all their questions and all their answers. So that might help you kind of understand a little bit how I'm working with the accountants, what type of things they're asking me. They're asking me questions about the books, or about, what happened with this check, what happened in this situation, stuff they can't figure out in the books that I give them. But to back up just a little bit, at the year end, the things that you want to give your accountant are, first of all, access to QuickBooks Online. So if you're like me, you're using QuickBooks Online exclusively, and within the program you can go to, I think it's like add a user and then add the accountant. I think the accountant should be like doesn't count as to your users, like, because you pay for a certain amount of users, either 3 or 5 or 1 if you're on the really cheap plan. But the accountant, I think, is like a freebie. Correct me in the comments if I am wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. And depending on the complexity of your client's business, they might not really need access to QuickBooks Online. In the past, I have just sent accountants reporting. So I just send them like a Excel document or a PDF of the profit and loss and the profit and loss detail and the balance sheet, and they are able to do the tax prep from that information. And then usually I have some kind of notes page with like questions or like weird things that happen that I can explain. So I do just try to clearly communicate as well as possible the story of the books and anything that might be confusing. And the other thing you are going to want to send them as well are bank statements. So for each of the accounts that are in QuickBooks, maybe it's 3 different accounts and a credit card or something, you want bank statements. Some accountants might want the whole year, like 12 statements for each account. Mine mostly just want December. I'm not sure if that's because they've worked with us for multiple years, so they know that our accounts were reconciled, the previous year, and then if they're good at the end of the year, then we're good. But yeah, usually I just download all of those from the bank website. Sometimes you might need your client to do that. And a lot of statements now are feeding into QuickBooks. So depending what bank you have, they might feed into QuickBooks as well. I guess then you probably wouldn't have to even give them to your accountant if they already have that login. So that should save you a step if that all works out. And it is really nice, after I work with an accountant for a couple years, I can anticipate their needs. So I know, exactly what they're checking and how. I know kind of what the pain points were the previous year, and I can be proactive to fix those things. Number 4, the other thing that I think you can really utilize as a bookkeeper is use your accountants that you know for networking. So I have found very often that, especially during tax time, accountants are too busy. Like, they don't have time for bookkeeping, like their normal bookkeeping that they're doing. So maybe they'll want to hire you temporarily during tax time. Maybe I've had an accountant give me like a few like one-off projects, like, oh, help with this during tax time, or even throughout the year. So that is a really great strategy too to network. If you are looking for clients right now, it might be a great way to just go meet some accountants. Maybe you could go to certain conferences where you can network with accountants. But all of those things hopefully will just help to build your network, build your knowledge base, and help you be successful as a bookkeeper. All right, today's video was pretty short and sweet, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope it gave you just a little more insight into how the inner workings of bookkeepers and accountants go, because I know it is confusing. I do have an older video that is a bookkeeper versus accountant, meaning like what are the duties of each. So you can check out that if you are interested. And don't forget to subscribe if you made it all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. Give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much. Take care.